You walk into what you think is a glasses store. You try on a pair from one brand, then another, maybe a third. You feel like a consumer exercising choice. You are not. In most cases, every frame you just touched was made by the same company, Luxottica, an Italian manufacturer most people have never heard of, a company that controls an estimated 80% of the major eyewear brands sold in the Western world. Ray-Ban, Oakley, Persol, Versace Eyewear, Prada Eyewear, Coach Eyewear, Burberry Eyewear, Armani Eyewear, all Luxottica, and if you buy them at LensCrafters, Sunglass Hut, Target Optical, or Pearl Vision, you are buying a Luxottica product in a Luxottica store. They also owned iMed, one of the largest vision insurance networks in the United States. So in some cases, Luxottica could theoretically sell you the insurance, the frames, and the lenses, all of it. This is not an accident. This is the result of one man's very deliberate, very patient, and it must be said genuinely brilliant strategy executed over half a century. His name was Leonardo Del Vecchio, and he started with nothing. Del Vecchio was born in Milan in 1935. His father died before he was born. His mother, unable to support 5 children, placed him in an orphanage at age 7. He eventually apprenticed at a tool and die factory in his teens, learning precision manufacturing. He was not given a head start. He manufactured one. In 1961, at age 26, Del Vecchio borrowed money and opened a small eyewear parts factory in Agordo, a town of roughly 4,000 people in the Dolomite Mountains of northern Italy. The factory had a handful of employees. It made components, hinges, frames, small metal parts for other companies. He was a supplier, a nobody in the supply chain. The eyewear industry at this time was fragmented. Dozens of small manufacturers, brands that designed frames and then outsourced production, retailers who had no relationship with makers. It was an industry full of middlemen, markups, and inefficiency. Del Vecchio looked at this and saw something no one else apparently saw. A single company could own every layer of it. Through the 1960s and 1970s, he expanded his factory, moved into finished frame production, and began building a direct sales force. While competitors were content to stay in their lane, make things, sell to wholesalers, let someone else handle the rest, Del Vecchio was buying more lanes. By the 1980s, Luxottica had its own distribution network in Italy. Vertical integration was the strategy before it had a name on an MBA syllabus. Del Vecchio understood something fundamental. If you control manufacturing and distribution, you do not negotiate price. You set it. In 1988, Luxottica made its first major international move. They acquired the license and later the full operations of La Mecanoptica and, more critically, launched an aggressive push into the United States. In 1990, they listed on the New York Stock Exchange, an Italian eyewear parts maker from the mountains, on the NYSE. Del Vecchio was patient. He was also paying attention. Then came the move that changed everything. In 1995, Luxottica acquired LensCrafters from United States Shoe Corporation for approximately $1.4 billion. LensCrafters was the largest optical retail chain in North America with over 860 locations. Luxottica had just bought not just a customer, but the entire storefront. The industry was confused. Manufacturers don't buy retailers. That's not how it works. Except it turns out, it is exactly how it works when you are Del Vecchio. The confusion was the point. No one had written the rule against it because no one had thought to do it. Now Luxottica controlled the shelf. They could decide which brands appeared in LensCrafters and which did not. They could price their own products as they wished and squeeze out competitors. Any brand that wanted access to LensCrafters traffic had to deal with a company that was also their direct manufacturing competitor. This was not subtle. In 1999, Luxottica acquired Ray-Ban from Bausch & Lomb for $640 million. Ray-Ban at the time was reportedly losing money. The brand was overexposed, discounted heavily, sold through gas stations and discount bins. It had lost its prestige entirely. This was considered a questionable acquisition. It was not. Del Vecchio immediately pulled Ray-Ban from discount channels, reduced supply, raised prices, and controlled distribution with surgical precision. Within a few years, Ray-Ban was profitable again, then extremely profitable. The brand that was dying in the discount bin became one of the best-selling sunglasses in the world. Price controls do not need to be government-enforced to be effective. Then Luxottica acquired Sunglass Hut. More storefronts, more shelf control. Then licensed deals with Chanel, Prada, Versace, Armani, Bulgari, Burberry, Donna Karan, and Dolce & Gabbana. The luxury fashion houses needed someone to make their eyewear. Luxottica was the obvious choice. They were also, by this point, the only choice at scale. In 2007, the company acquired Oakley. Oakley had tried to resist Luxottica's pricing power. In 2001, Luxottica had dropped Oakley products from its retail chains. Oakley's stock fell by roughly 30% almost immediately. They held out for 6 years. Eventually, Luxottica bought them for approximately $2.1 billion. The lesson here is grim and efficient. If you are a brand that sells through Luxottica stores and Luxottica decides to remove you, you lose a significant portion of your retail presence overnight. You cannot easily replace it, because the alternative retail channels are also largely owned by Luxottica. It is an elegant trap. Oakley fought it for 6 years, then got absorbed anyway. By the early 2010s, Luxottica's revenue had climbed past €8 billion annually. The company employed over 80,000 people worldwide. It had manufacturing facilities in Italy, China, and Brazil. It operated thousands of retail locations globally. Del Vecchio, the orphan from Milan, was one of the wealthiest people in Europe, and yet most consumers had no idea this company existed. You knew Ray-Ban, you knew Oakley, you knew LensCrafters. You did not know they were the same entity. This is, from a business strategy standpoint, an extraordinary achievement. From a consumer transparency standpoint, it is something else. The price question is unavoidable. Why do glasses cost so much? A pair of frames that costs an estimated $8 to $15 to manufacture in many cases retails for $200, $300, sometimes over $500. The standard explanation involves design, licensing, and retail overhead. That is true partially. The other part is that there is, functionally, very little competition in the channel. Regulators noticed intermittently. Luxottica faced antitrust scrutiny in various markets over the years. The company always argued it competed in a global market, that independent brands and retailers existed, and that consumers had choices. All of this is technically accurate. The architecture of those choices is what makes the argument interesting. In 2018, Luxottica merged with Essilor, the French optics giant that dominates the lens manufacturing market, the actual glass or plastic in your frames. The combined company, Essilor-Luxottica, had revenues of roughly €16 billion. They now controlled not just the frames and the stores, but the lenses themselves. The vertical integration was, at this point, nearly complete. Leonardo Del Vecchio died in June 2022 at age 87, worth an estimated $27 billion. He had transformed a mountain workshop with a handful of workers into one of the most quietly dominant consumer goods companies on Earth. He did it without a single viral moment, without a famous product launch, without being a household name. He just bought everything, methodically, for 50 years. The lesson Luxottica teaches is not about innovation. They did not invent a new product. Eyeglasses existed. The lesson is about control of infrastructure. Del Vecchio understood that in a fragmented industry, the company that owns the distribution chooses the winners. Everything else, the brands, the prestige, the licensing deals, flows from that single structural advantage. Control the shelf and you control the market. Control the market and you set the price. Set the price long enough and everyone forgets there was ever another way. That is not disruption. That is something older, more patient, and considerably more effective. Next time, the company that convinced the world's airlines to lease planes they used to own and turned an accounting trick into a $100 billion industry. Subscribe for more hidden empires.